Good afternoon. I'm Yuan with a connected marketing agency called NEWBASE, previously called Publicitas. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you, Laure, for the honor. You've just heard from Antoine, the previous speaker, talking about his passion for food, how he started as a KOL. Antoine and I actually knew each other from our days back in Beijing, in the agency world. I knew he loved to cook, but I didn't know how much he loved to cook. So if there's one thing that the Chinese and the French have in common, is our obsession with food, okay? And that obsession goes much further beyond just the 3 meals per day. Since we all love the topic so much, we're going to stay on the topic of eating and cooking while I take you into the world of digital marketing. So, for those of you who love to cook as much as Antoine, you know that preheat is an essential step of the cooking process. Whether you choose a wok or an oven or a frying pan to make your dish, to get that wok, to get that frying pan to the perfect temperature before you start cooking the meal, often will determine whether it turns out to be exactly the way you want it or a total flop. And when we're running a marketing campaign, actually it's not very much unlike cooking, actually. With the Chinese, we call actually creating hype, speculating promotion, 炒作, which comes from stir frying. So basically, preheat is as important to cooking as it is for digital marketing. So, if we look at the reasons, the rationale behind preheating, there's the tactical aspect. It's all about providing the background information. It's about giving the right context for your campaign before it starts. It's about ensuring that you have time for the information to propagate, to reach your target audience. And it's about setting up the right contextual, sentimental environment. That's the tactical side. On the psychological side, this is more interesting, and that's where art comes in. It's all about that intrigue. It's about stirring up that curiosity. It's about whetting the appetite. It's about the art of teasing. It's about creating and intensifying that desire by the delaying of time. I make it almost sounds like foreplay in sex, huh? Yes, so most of these psychological elements are actually very relevant for the Chinese market. Now, if you look at the Chinese consumer, Tom earlier had made a much deeper, I would say, analysis of the Chinese consumers. Here, I'm just giving you the superficial sort of qualities. Online, I'm generalizing here a little bit, of course. Online love to share. They love to speculate on something new, something unknown, something strange. Express their opinions. They live to show off. They thrive to compare their life to one another. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, WeChat, the way it becomes what it is today is not an accident, okay? WeChat has the whole China's psychology figured out to be what it is today. In the meanwhile, the Chinese consumers are suspicious because we have our share of fake news, and they're bombarded with so many different kinds of advertising formats and things like that, it's hard for them to fall in love with a brand or a product right away. They need time to process, to understand what country is it from, who's using it, what are people saying about it, before they take that decision. So all these elements make the Chinese consumer that much more susceptible to preheating and makes preheating that much more effective in the Chinese market. Now, domestic brands in China, from the very small local businesses all the way to the biggest e-commerce giant like Alibaba with their single day of preheating extravaganza, they all understand the concept of preheating and leverage it quite often. Here I'll give you a couple of examples to see how they're doing it. This is a local Shanghainese flower shop. It's a pop-up shop. Pop-up shop is another one of those Chinese trendy things. There's a lot of pop-up shops all over the place. They only open on one day of a year. That's May 20th. Now, May 20th is another one of the Chinese invention of Valentine's Day, as if we don't have enough Valentine's Day. We have the Western 14th of February, Valentine's Day. We have our traditional July lunar calendar, July Valentine's Day. Now we have the May 20th. Why? Because 520 in Shanghainese sounds like I love you. However, this flower shop is not about love. This flower shop is about breaking up. As a matter of fact, the name of the flower shop is called Breaking Up Flower Shop. Okay? 2 months before the May 20th, in the social media, there's this initiative of people writing and sharing their last word that they want to say to their ex-girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband, whatever, or to their current partner, what they want to say before they want to break up. And this, as you can imagine, caught on fire. This went viral and everything. So what seemed like a grassroots type of social viral discussion was actually carefully orchestrated by the shop owner with hashtag breaking up declarations, okay? So it was orchestrated by the shop owner, and by the time May 20th come around, there's already 2.6 million tweets on the topic on Weibo and WeChat. And the day when the pop shop pops up, this looks more like the iPhone, launch day. People lined up around the building for hours just to buy a flower. And there were 40,000 foot traffic and 80,000 bouquets sold online in the shop today, approximately about 300,000 euro. Not bad for one day of work, huh? Next example, this is actually an example of an online player called MaiMai. Most of you might know that LinkedIn never really took off in China, so a Chinese player has the opportunity to take its place. Surprise, as usual. And they were developed about 3.5 years ago. Before they launch, they have constructed this elaborate preheating campaign that's subdivided into these 5 different phases. Phase 1, they have taken out ads on newspapers, outdoors, metros, you name it. This is not a cheap undertaking, you can imagine. With the character luo, which means naked. It's like enigma, and Chinese love enigma. So you get the whole country guessing and talking about it, what does it mean? And phase 2, they actually start to reveal the answers to this enigma right away. It's actually the concept of you and I come into this world naked. We came naked, we're gonna leave naked, so we should be sharing. Sharing money is gonna be a bit difficult. So what we're gonna be sharing is knowledge, know-how, experiences. That's what MaiMai is based on. So they started this whole debate on the psychological, social, and economical benefits of a sharing economy. The next phase, they propagated this discussion, used different kinds of channels, and amplify it so that the whole internet, the whole social media in China is talking about it. The next phase of the preheat, they start to bring KOLs. These are the real industry leaders, CEOs, CEOs and the angel investors, you name it, they're a very famous person. They began to jump in to talk about the topic and bring the preheat to a climax before they wrap up the preheat by saying that, by the way, MaiMai is going to launch in a couple months of time, and when they do a big launch party and launch campaign. And they spent a lot of money for this preheat. It's about almost $8 million US. But if you look at when they launched, now they have 2.8 million registered users, and they have received $300 million US funding. So if you do the math, that's not a bad deal, huh? So that's China. In the Western world, preheat is not as much leveraged. I mean, there are exceptions like Apple, who does it spectacularly when they launch their iPhone. But as in general rule, in the US and Europe, brands tend not to do it so much. The brands, at least the one I work with, when I suggested to them that they move part of the budget to preheat, the answer is usually, no. We have a fixed budget. We want to keep it all together, and that way we can make a big bang out of it. What they don't realize is precisely to make a big bang that we need to be leveraging preheat. Now, of course, not all preheats are alike. Not all of us have $8 million to spend on preheat. So it really depends on what your objectives are, what do you want to do, and how do you do exactly a preheat campaign? Now, in the 6 minutes that I have left, I'm going to run through very quickly a pragmatic and live case study to show you. I say live because it's ongoing. The client is Swissquote, Europe's leading online trading platform. China is a strategic market for them, has a lot of potentials, and their objective is very clear. They want to establish a stronger presence, increase brand awareness. And they've been investing in very popular football club, but Manchester United for the past 3 years. And this year, they have made this film, which is 15 seconds, to show you what they're about. Basically, it says that where does winning come from? Winning comes from wise decisions, therefore you should choose Swiss quote. Now, this is great stuff. What you might not know and what the client didn't know, that Chinese are the biggest fan of Manchester United. It's the #1 popular football club in China, way before even the domestic teams, because they suck, really. And on Weibo alone, we have 9.2 million fans. I mean, they're not just normal fans. They are fanatic. These Chinese are as fanatic about Manchester United as the English, and I don't really know why. And they're not just teeny boppers. The profile of the Manchester United fans are spread out throughout the different age group. We even have a country's top celebrities. I call him the king of fresh meat, that openly expresses his affection for Manchester United, so much so that one of his tweets back in 2013 about a goal received 100 million retweets. 100 million. He entered into the Guinness World of Record for a social media tweet that's been retweeted most of the time in the history of mankind. So you can see, so this is all great stuff. I mean, for me, it's like I'm a cook in front of all these fresh ingredients. Says, what am I going to do with it? So this is where preheat comes in. Because if we were to launch the video right away into the Chinese market, it's kind of like a shoveling down their throat because they don't have any background on this. So what do we want to do in the preheat? During the preheat, we want the market to have the information about the sponsorship so that they understand that the client is a sponsor of Manchester United. We want this information to be as organic as possible during the preheat, which means that we're not going to be doing the advertising. We're not going to do any banners. We're going to leverage other people's voices to talk about our brand. And third, most important of all, we want the consumer to make that association in their own minds. We don't want to preach it to them. They should make that association, okay, the world's leading football club. If they partnership with somebody, they must be leading as well. So you build up this mystery about the client without the client saying it themselves and using this preheat mechanism. So very quickly, before we choose the digital touch points, we need to understand where the audience are. And contrary to what you think, the online traders are not these savvy, suave, sophisticated businessmen, but majority are these white, blue collars, college student, housewife, or even pensioners. Not exactly the sexiest group, but once we cross-reference against the profile of the Manchester United fans, there's a lot of overlap. So this is great news. So choosing the digital channels. KOL, it's the usual suspect. You heard it from the team from Robin 8. This is almost becoming de facto mainstream channels now. But of course, not all KOLs are equal. You have the celebrities, the Wanghongs, which are too expensive. We don't really need them anyway. What's more interesting is in category 3 and 4, which you heard from the Robin 8's team before. You understand their engagement level. You understand the relevance with your brand. They are much more, they're cheaper. They are much better to work with. And they produce great content, and their followership is loyal, so that it will bring your brand much more value than perhaps even the celebrities. So besides KOL, what are other channels to consider? We have Toutiao. If you have heard about it for the first time today, you should jot it down. Toutiao is in the process of becoming one of the most important digital channels in China. It has a market capitalization of 20 billion US dollars. It's a news portal. It doesn't produce any content itself. It's aggregator. It works with almost 4,000. She's standing up. I know what that means. Okay, I'm going to rush up. Basically, jot it down. You need to know Toutiao. It's very, very valuable for you as a marketer. There's also EPR, because it's very expensive to advertise on these portals. But the trick is they have a section dedicated to PR article, which is perfect for the client. Knowledge platforms, the Wikipedia And the query of the Chinese world is something that you definitely need to leverage and leverage well. I will have time to talk about it during this break. BBS stands for Bulletin Board System, and it's obsolete in the Western world, but in China it's still very much alive and gives you all the traffic. So after this elaborate preheating we've done, we have achieved all the 3 objectives we want to achieve. We have a big visibility, 53 million, which is almost 5 times of our KPI. We use the KOL. We have a lot of engagement, and the engagement are exactly what we wanted. It's people talking about, so who is this Swiss Quo? Who are they? Why are they sponsorship of Manchester United? So basically, it's like cooking. We got that oven to be exactly the right temperature. So next month, when we launch the campaign, video campaign, we can make sure that it will be a good success. So I think my time is up. Just one sentence to wrap up. Whether your goal for China is to promote your product, increase your brand awareness, know your audience, and master each of the new digital platforms, and most important of all, leverage preheat whenever it's relevant, because that's going to make your marketing dollar go a long, long way. Thank you very much.